Sunanda, let's get started. Thank you for being a part of New India Junction today. I'm so happy to talk to you. Thanks for joining us all the way from Houston. And, let me just start out by saying today has been a historic day for India, for sure, if not the world. So coming from Houston, let's just start by you telling me how you feel.
Ecstatic and just numb right now, because last 4 days were up and down, heavals and upheavals and what was going on. I was in India 4 days ago, so I just flew back. So while I was flying back, the troop movement had already started in Kashmir. So we didn't know what to expect. And we were doing all kinds of speculations. And I must say this on air, that to all my readers who were asking me as a Kashmir watcher or somebody who writes on Kashmir, I was asked, what do you think? So I had told them clearly, and it's on my Twitter timeline and it's everywhere. I told them, do not expect 370, do not expect 35A, and do not expect trifurcation. Guess what? I've been proven wrong, happily wrong on
3 out of 3 wrong.
Zero. I get zero. As a political commentator, I get zero.
But how does it make you feel that all 3 have come through?
Have come true. Honestly, I'll tell you, I did not expect. I did not think any government had the guts and the courage to do this. For as long as I can remember, Priyanka, and for many people across India, Article 370 is just a constitutional provision or a constitutional measure. But when you grow up in Kashmir, Article 370 is something you grow up in shadow of Article 370. Before children know their ABCs, we know Article 370, and we always knew that this is something, and we were told, we were fed that if anybody tinkers with Article 370, Qayamat aa jayegi, it will be apocalypse, the world will go upside down. Yeah. So we were raised with that. We were told that no one in the world can tinker with Article 370. Wow. And as one grew up and one read about it,
and when did you grow up in Kashmir?
Around the time when all this commotion was happening. I was born in Kashmir, and in 1990, when I had to move, I was a young girl, and in my early teens, and actually not even a teenager. I about 11 or 12 years old. So that was the time, when everything went kaput and this thing, and all Kashmiri Pandits had to leave for their safety and for their lives. But whenever solution to Kashmir problem was thought about, we were always told that, it's a simple measure. Somebody has to remove Article 370 and then the integration will be complete. That was one school of thought. But then at the same time, we were told that nobody can tinker with it. It's become, even though it was temporary, no one can tinker with it anymore. It's just not. There are constitutional provisions. Supreme Court is going to do this. It was apocalyptic. But today, when I saw Honorable Home Minister Amit Shah announcing it in the Rajya Sabha first, and my heart was going boom, 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 and suddenly, and I saw the way it was presented, it was watertight. I don't think it can be challenged legally anymore, and this is what many of us had already said, that it cannot be challenged legally. It is a temporary provision. Just somebody needs to have the courage to go for it. So that is one part of it. But emotionally, it opens a huge, just opens the gates of emotion for all Kashmiris and for Kashmiri Hindus especially, because Kashmiri Hindus are the only ones who grow up in Kashmir with the flag of India in their hands. And for us, somebody from India not being able to do business in Kashmir, for example, or live in Kashmir just did not make sense. I mean, if I, as the resident of Kashmir, as a citizen of Kashmir, was able to go and work and live anywhere else, and the Constitution of India was enough for me, why did that not happen? Why was vice versa? And so it was something that was told to us that, this is something that safeguards Kashmir. I just want to say it through your medium right now that Article 370 never safeguarded anyone. 70 years, it only pushed people to poverty. It only pushed people to, and I think one of the reasons why terrorism was such a, they could find people to take that narrative was because there was not enough employment. There was nothing to lose, really. If you have nothing to lose, that is the time when you will go and you will destroy everything.
Right.
So in fact, I tweeted about it this morning. I said, do not listen to what people tell you. Article 370 was never a bridge. It was an impediment. And that's what Mr. Amit Shah said today. It was an impediment. It was because of that the integration of Kashmir never happened totally. It made everyone feel, including Pandits, that we are not completely citizens of India, because we had these dual citizenship and all that. So today I think
let's talk
is
a little bit about that. That's a very interesting statement that you made, where you said that we felt like we were not full citizens of India. Now I can't imagine that feeling. Can you tell us a little bit about, maybe perhaps you said that you were 11 or 12, which is old enough to kind of understand what was going on, old enough to remember what it was like. Perhaps maybe you saw your parents suffer or go through certain experiences. Can you share some of those with us and how it made you feel?
So, growing up in, say, Punjab or Haryana or Chennai or anywhere else, you just knew Constitution of India protected you. When you grow up in Kashmir, you knew that Constitution of India was there, but you also had Constitution of J&K, which you abided to. And interestingly, because this Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir had never been tampered with, nobody had ever thought about it, and since 1930s or something, it was not a modern document, like modern progressive document. And because it was not a modern progressive document, it was always clashing with Constitution of India. Constitution of India guarantees everyone equality. That is the first step. It guarantees everyone equality. Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir did not guarantee everyone equality. For example, so we had something called state subject. As a Kashmiri, we all had to procure something called state subjects, which is the state would confirm that it was a certificate which would tell you that you are the subject of the state. So as a state subject, if I was marrying a non-Kashmiri or a non-J&K, for the longest time, till 2002 at least, I could not inherit any of the property of my parents or my grandparents or anybody. So this was completely against women. I could not inherit anything. I lost all control. In 2002, this measure was challenged in the court, and then the High Court said, oh well, the women will be able to, now they will be able to, finally after much deliberations, they said you can inherit your parents' property, but your children will not be able to inherit, because they cannot be state subjects, because for state subject, the father had to be, not just the mother, the father had to be the state subject. Or subject to the state. My children could not procure citizenship of the Jammu and Kashmir because their father was not Kashmiri, even though their mother was Kashmiri. And because they could not procure state subject, they could not own any property, they could not sell anything, they could not buy anything in Kashmir. So till 2002, even I couldn't. But after 2002, they opened this little thing up, but our children could not do it. So making it completely anti-women. And another way, Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir was completely a document that needed to be thrown into the dustbin of history, was that it gave no guarantees to minorities. None, zero. and or it did not give any safeguards for tribals, for SCs, for STs, which now will change, which Constitution of India gives them. So it did not give any guarantees of employment or reservations or anything they have for SC, STs or anybody or minority or underprivileged communities. So this was a document which was completely in conflict with a progressive document that we know as Constitution of India. It needed to be thrown out, and I'm glad today it was thrown, consigned to the history, to the trash can of history, is what I like to say.
Do you remember the day that you had to leave Kashmir?
The day I had to leave? Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Of course.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
It is, I have spoken so much about it and I have talked about it. Most of your viewers would probably know, but I will still narrate. Today's a happy day. I don't want to go about that.
Tell us something that you have that they don't know.
January 19th, 1990, most Kashmir watchers will know, was the day when those loudspeakers came out blaring and Kashmiri Pandits were told to leave. However, my family did not leave on that day. My mother said that, I have nowhere to go. I have no employment outside of Kashmir. So I'm not going to go anywhere. I will live here. And because she did not leave, my grandparents would not leave their daughter alone. So they said, we will not leave. On January 19th, we were at my grandfather's house. We were watching a movie, an old V. Shantaram movie, and I've spoken about it. And we were completely engrossed when suddenly we heard blaring loudspeakers. And my mother had stepped out and she screamed. And when we went outside, we heard these loudspeakers. I'm trying to make the long story short. We heard these loudspeakers blaring and threatening us with slogans that have now become part of history, that, we should leave, Kashmiri Pandits should leave, leaving behind their women folk, because they wanted to make it a Pakistan with Kashmiri Pandit women and not with Kashmiri Pandit men. Everyone knows the implications of that. We were told that we have to either, we were given three options. We had to convert or flee or accept, or die. Convert, flee or die. These were our three options. 99% of people, or 99% of Kashmiri Pandits that day flee. What other option do you have?
You were a little girl then. I mean, this experience, how did it make you, what were you thinking? What was going on through your mind? I mean, you have such vivid memories of that day.
That is the first day I realized that being a Hindu could mean that, could be, I hadn't known my religious identity till then. I was only 11. I did not know, I did not dwell in my religious identity as much.
Right.
But at that time, I suddenly realized that being a Hindu means not being safe in Kashmir anymore. Mm-hmm. And that thought was very disconcerting, to say the least. That was the first time I realized that I had a religious identity, and it was only because why else would we be told to leave our home of 5,000 years? Only because we were Hindus, right?
Sorry, continue. I interrupted you.
I know, no. But then at that time, we stayed till August because my mother just put her foot down and she said, I won't go. I don't know anybody outside. I've never lived outside. How am I going to raise a child? How am I going to, I'm not going to do anything. But we went through from January to August. We saw targeted killings of Kashmiri Pandits. We saw my own family members being taken out and shot dead. We saw my family members being put on what was those days called hit list, which meant that if you were on the list, you could be you were on the you were in the target and you would be shot at any time. And then
it's just, it's so, me hearing that, I can't believe it. I mean, I can't even imagine what you went through. And How did
90.
you ever overcome that? Or what were some of the things
Most
you
of
did to, because
we are
that's
I call
absolutely terrible.
ourselves, no. I call my generation children of conflict. And even though we have made our lives outside of Jammu and Kashmir now, that hasn't left us. We are
Right.
scarred forever, and the generation before us is scarred forever. There are times when I'm alone and I can hear the blaring noises in my head still. It happens a lot. So it has led to a lot of emotional trauma, and it has led to the choice of a career. It has led to the choice of the life that I lead. Uh, it's everything. It has completely dominated my life. That one incident has completely dominated my life. I mean, the fact that I decided to be a writer and write about Kashmir was because of what had happened to me, because I needed to tell my story. If I didn't tell my story, our story, we would be wiped out. And today, as people are congratulating me and hundreds and thousands of other activists, it is because we stayed alive to tell our story. And on Priyanka, on 19th January 1990, if there would have been no Article 370, somebody like you could have come to protect me, or somebody, my friends, could have come to protect me. But because of Article 370, you were not welcome in the state. Even though we were Indians, you are as much an Indian as I am, but you were not welcome in the state. So there could be no help, absolutely no help. That situation, 19th January 1990 situation, will never arise now. And that credit goes to Narendra Modi. That situation will never arise now.
During that situation, I mean, the only thing, if like I said, I can't even imagine myself in that situation, and you've been through it. But the only thing that I can feel is just a sense of helplessness. When there's no help, when you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
A, f- a feeling of, for a long time, I used to be ashamed of, and I'm ashamed to say this, but I used to be ashamed of my religious identity because I felt it was because of who I am, what faith is. Because of that, we have had to see. It took me a while to get out of that guilt. No child should be put through that. No human being should be put through that. We should not be told in independent India, no one should be told that you're being persecuted. And Constitution of India safeguards us. And now it will safeguard every single Kashmir. Even, and I've been saying this since yesterday, I mean, since this morning, since this has come about, I have been telling this, that Article 370 is a removal of Article 370 is as pro-Kashmiri as it can get. It is the only people who will be affected right now is a few elite, Kashmiri elite, who have been feeding on this fear psychosis. They don't get to use this fear psychosis anymore, but everybody else, there will be industries that will be going into Kashmir now, there will be people who will be going into Kashmir now, there will be employment opportunities in Kashmir now, and young people who were picking up stones will actually, and that is when they will not heed to that call from the mosque that tells them to throw stones. This is why this economic integration was important. This is why the social integration was important. This is why Article 370 needed to go, not just for Kashmiri Pandits, but for Kashmiri Muslims as well. For everyone, for Dogras of Jammu, and for Ladakhis of Ladakh, it needed to go away. And like any other part of the country, we needed to, this was the unfinished agenda of partition that needed to be done today. And I'm glad Narendra Modi has done it.
I'm just baffled, honestly. That now I think I feel numb, to be honest, just because these are huge things to get over, and especially at the age of 11 and 12, as you said.
I want you to understand, this is 1990 we are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This exodus, the only exodus that independent India saw was of the minorities of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, the Kashmiri Pandits, and this happened in 1990.
Yeah.
And people are, it's not like it happened 500 years ago. It
Right.
happened in 1990.
Very recently.
So recent, and people just didn't seem to. Of course, for us, every day has been, as good as 300 days. One day has been equivalent to 300 days. But it's not, I mean, in independent India, something like this could happen and people could get away with it is numbing. And I think that wrong has been set right now. Constitution of India is all pervading in Jammu and Kashmir, and it will protect the minorities, the majorities, the tribals, the SCs, the STs, the Gujars, every human.
When you think about what's happened today, and you think about your family, your children, your husband, your parents, your grandparents, how do you think they would feel, and how do you feel when you think about that?
Very, very emotional. I mean, the first thing that I tweeted when this happened yesterday, I said, I want to go home. And that was the only thing I could say. And I called my mother, and she said, and suddenly there is that, that desire has, because we had given up hope. Honestly, we thought that it would be nothing short of a miracle. And my phone is buzzing with all family members and friends saying that, yes, it is possible to go back home. Miracles can happen. So it's nothing
How
short
does
of
that
a
make you
miracle.
feel? I mean,
It
when
is.
you say, I take it for granted. Like I told you, I grew up in Chicago, and I can just hop on a plane and just go home. It's just a thing. I don't even have to think twice about it.
Yeah.
How did it make you feel when you just knew you'd given up hope on ever going home? What
A
were
sense
some
of
of the hard moments?
Yes, a sense of homelessness, Priyanka, which all of us grow up with. And the generation before us dealt with it in a very different manner than we do. We internalized it, but the generation, like in all her vocabulary, so if it's very hot in Delhi, she will say, Kashmir would never get this hot today. And then if it's cold, she'll say, it feels like Kashmir today. So I tell her that she has a Kashmir thermometer. So she measures everything with that. So she'll never say anything like, it's true for everybody. And so they will say that, or maybe it's a food item that we like. So she'll go hunting all over Delhi to go find that. So the sense of homelessness is very deep and very deeply ingrained, and it has, no matter one has built homes after that, I mean, because one has to live, but it has never been home. It has always been that, okay, we are here temporarily, one day we'll go back home. And as time passed, we had given up that hope, but suddenly it has come up again. I remember very clearly, even before 2014, when Mr. Narendra Modi, then as candidate for BJP, running for elections, he did a rally called Dalkar Rally in Jammu, and that is the day that was the first time a mainstream leader had the courage to say to at least there were almost 50,000 people in the grounds watching him, and he said, I want to ask all Kashmiris, what has Article 370? I want you to think about that. And at least he opened up the conversation. And 6 years after, we see this day. And privately, even all people living in Valley will tell you that 370 has given us nothing. It is other than this fear psychosis, where we have been told that you have to protect it and you have to fight for it. We don't know what. I remember not too long ago when there was this a conversation about 370. Farooq Abdullah, a former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, was asked, what will happen if 370 will go away? And he said, I cannot tell you what will happen. So, that fear psychosis, you would ask Mehbooba Mufti, what will happen if 370 will go away? And they would tell you, we can't tell you what will happen, but it's very bad. So that's how they scare their own people. That's how they bought loyalty to people, that India will come and destroy you if 370 goes away. No, that will not happen, because Constitution of India guarantees every citizen of J&K, every person living in J&K has rights as much as you do, or anybody living in Chennai or Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu or anywhere does. So to put that fear psychosis that only 370 was so wrong, but it was done for 7 decades. It's the biggest scam of independent India. Biggest scam, and I'm glad it's over.
And it affects so many people mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yes.
What were some of the things that you did to not get, I don't know if you're over that or not. I don't think it can ever leave you, but what were some of the things that you did to cope with it?
To cope with, while we were there, because I was young when I left, but my parents often say that other than the glaring, as I said, we were following the Constitution of J&K, apart from Constitution of India, and Constitution of J&K and India, they were clashing, because, as I said, the Constitution of J&K was a very regressive document. What that did was that for employment, for any other financial integration, you felt that there was nothing you could do in Kashmir. Other than tourism, there was no industry. So even though we were there, people would have to go out for jobs. So that was one. Emotionally, you did not feel completely integrated with India. As my family was, we were as Indian as it could be, but then we had this document called state subject, and we did not have the same rights as other people in India did. We were there was another penal code. Kashmir had its different penal code, Ranbir Penal Code, RPC. It did not have Indian penal code. It was completely different. So I don't understand people who say that it is a bridge. 370 acted as a bridge between Kashmir and India. It did not. It actually fostered separatism, because it did not completely integrate you. And not just that, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir signed the same instrument of accession that every other state, princely state did. It was no different. It was absolutely no different. And then Sheikh Abdullah, who was confessed, he was representing his own people, which was also a fraud, because he may have represented his own people, but for Jammu there was no representation. Another wrong of the history that has been righted today. It was said that till in Srinagar they have their own constituent assembly and they ratified the Constitution of India, we will have something like Article 370 temporarily. And that's how, as a very temporary measure, Article 370 got put into the Constitution. At that time, fraudulently, it was never intended to be a permanent fixture. Because how can states integrate? Think about how state of Hyderabad integrated with and yet today, can anybody living in that area in Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad, ever think that they're not part of India? Think of the violence, think of Operation Polo, and think of all the violence that happened. But today they are completely integrated. Same for other states as well. Same for Jodhpur. There were problematic states when in 1947, when all the princely states were acceding. It's not that Kashmir was the only problematic state. In fact, it was the least problematic state. There was Hyderabad was hugely problematic. There was Jodhpur. There were other places that were Junagadh. There were other places that were problematic. But at that point, I mean Kashmir, because of its geography and the first war of Kashmir, when right after 1947, Pakistan sent its what we in Kashmiri know as Kabul raid, but it was Pakistani irregulars coming and attacking India, and that's when the history knows. That's when Sardar Patel sent Indian Air Force, and rest is history. But what I want to say is that the instrument of accession, Kashmir was no different than any other princely state. So to say that somehow it enjoys different, privileges, I don't understand why. And I mean, I do understand why. It was the elephant in the room that no one wanted to confront, was that it kept two-nation theory that India had completely rejected. It kept it alive because it told us, Article 370 told us that because Kashmir is a majority Muslim population, it cannot be part of India. It needs special privileges to be part of India. So that was the living example of two-nation theory that we had completely rejected. There was no reason for Kashmir to have, if Muslims from Mumbai or Chennai or Kerala don't need any special privileges, then why do Muslims of Kashmir need any special privileges?
I can just see the passion in your voice right now when you're making these statements. I can imagine how it would make you feel, and today's decision, how it's making you feel.
Because they negated everything that India stood for. We had rejected two-nation theory. We had said that we do not believe in anybody getting any special rights because of their religion. We had said everybody is free and has. This was denied in Jammu and Kashmir. So I am glad that this has happened today. I am absolutely glad that this has happened today. As I call it, unfinished task of partition. It kept two-nation theory alive. It went against the secular grain of India. India could not call itself secular state as long as Article 370 exists. So it was very important to do what we did today.
And you mentioned, we were talking a little bit about how 370 did not act as a bridge at all. 370 did not help in any way whatsoever. You mentioned a little bit about hit lists, which is very, I can't even, my heart is beating when you say something like that. But can you, and I think you said earlier in this interview that, if you were on the hit list, there was no sort of way of getting out of that hit list. It was just what it was. When you look at today's decision, and when you look at what has happened today in Indian history, can you remember anyone in particular that perhaps were part of that hit list that would have really appreciated what would have happened today? Every single one, but in your memory, can you maybe think of a few people who are close to you?
Yes. A very close family relative who was shot dead by his own driver. He was private secretary to then governor of. He was going to work on March 1st, 1990. A very close family relative, and so maybe if I remember his children and I remember his family today.
How would he have felt
I wonder
today
what must.
if he was still there?
I was still there.
How would he have felt today if he was alive today?
It would have been much. It would have been. No one deserved to die. Absolutely, no one deserved to die. I remember them, and I remember every single martyr, every single Kashmiri Pandit martyr, right from Pandit Tikalal Taplu, who was the first KP who fell to the bullets of jihadis. From him to every single martyr who died in Kashmir and in exile, this victory is theirs, and I dedicate it to them. I remember them today, and it is for those people who shot dead in a man called B.K. Ganju, a young engineer, 30-year-old engineer who was shot dead in his own home, who was hiding in a rice drum, and his neighbors ratted out on him, and he was shot dead, and his wife was made to eat the blood-soaked rice of her own husband. I remember him. Remember the young nurse who was cut a saw, an electric saw, raped and cut on an electric saw by the people who are known to her. I remember Ashok Ghazi, who was shot dead in the same street as he was born in, not shot dead completely. He was shot in his legs. Announcements were made that no one could come and help him. He was urinated on, and as he lay there writhing in pain, a dance of death was done around him, and finally he died in the same street that he was born in. I remember him today. And as I said, I remember every single fallen martyr in Kashmir during that period, 1990, 91, 89 to 91, and after that also. And then I remember every person who died in exile, because as we say in Kashmiri Pandits often say that every death in exile is a martyr's death, as long as we go back. So
absolutely,
this victory is theirs.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that must have been very difficult for you to share. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you.
I really do. It takes a very strong person to share all of those, and may they rest in peace. They didn't deserve to die the way that they did. It's absolutely horrific. But
I also want to say that I want to reach out to every single person in Kashmir Valley today, and I want to tell them, have faith in the Constitution of India. Have faith in leadership, Indian leadership. That is more than what my parents could have told me on the January 1990. Have faith in the leadership. Have faith in the Constitution of India. This is your moment to completely integrate with the great nation of India. This is your moment to give up the past. You have been given a life does not give second chances very easily. But even the people who are in the valley right now, who may be feeling, they're under siege, but they're really not under siege. This is their country as much as it's yours and mine. I want them to feel that this is the second chance life has given them. Let's be part of this new India together. Bygones are bygones. Let's be part of this new India together. And from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, let that not be just a rhetorical statement. Let that be a statement that we go, we tell the world proudly, Kashmir to Kanyakumari, we are one. I don't harbor any ill feelings. I am actually ready to start my slate fresh. And people in Valley can also do that.
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, that's such a positive statement from someone who's been through so much. And I hope that others that have been through the same thing share your thoughts, because that is the way to move forward for sure. Yes. In a positive way. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to say?
Not really. I think we've gone through everything pretty much. I can't think of anything.
Well, I have one last question then. Now, when you go back home, what are you going to look forward to when you step back on your own soil back home? When you go and visit.
I'll tell you what I look forward to. I look forward forward to the freedom of cheering for Indian cricket team in Srinagar and not being. When India wins a cricket match, I'm no cricket buff anymore, but if India wins a cricket match, I want to be able to go back and go in my backyard and dance and be happy and not worry that I can be killed. That's
I would love to follow up with you after you visit just to see what your experience is. But I'm so happy for you today, and I want to thank you from honestly the bottom of my heart
no,
for
thank
sharing
you.
your
Thank
story.
you for taking time out. No, thank you.
And I hope that we can catch up soon. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care.